that everybody can add your city along with your name or even your state on the Zoom window. Click on the 3 dots at the top of your picture to rename. That would be great. This way we'll know where everyone's zooming in from. And we have a very interesting program tonight. So let's get right to it. I'm joined this evening by my Tiger Chats co-MC Royce Flippin, who will tell you a little more about what's on tap. Hi, Royce, great to see you.
Great to see you, Wendy, and everyone else. Happy December. Tonight's program is going to last about 90 minutes, including a 30-minute presentation on the exotic world of Princetoniana by Gary King, our colleague from the class of 1979, that Gary's been working on with our classmate, Bill Natbany. And as I'm sure you all know, Princetoniana is a fancy word for historical items and artifacts related to our alma mater. And I understand Gary has some interesting tales to tell. After that, we're going to try a new type of interactive Zoom segment known as a fishbowl, which Bernardo Ferdman will lead us in. That'll take about 20 minutes. Then we're going to have 2 of our classic 10-minute breakout rooms where we can catch up with each other a little bit. We'll throw in a few polls along the way, and then we will send everyone off with a Princeton fight song, which I have not yet heard. I look forward to. And we're going to start off before everything, of course, with a few minutes of our free-for-all group chat. So Wendy, back to you for that.
Thanks, Royce. This is now our 4th Tiger Chat. So here's a fast poll to ask how many you've attended so far. If you could mark down your choice, one choice, that'd be great. Awesome.
Right,
So
here's the results.
Okay, that's great. So I'm very happy to see we've got 5 new people for whom this is the first Tiger Chat. That's great. We really hope that you're going to enjoy it. And you'll join us every other month when we do these Tiger Chats. And in between, we do some really interesting talks. So thanks for letting us know. Special welcome to our first timers. And we're first going to open up the Zoom to everyone to chat in an open chat for about 10 to 15 minutes. And by the way, since we're focused on Princetoniana tonight, if you happen to have any interesting Princeton-related odds and ends sitting around, here's to you, Peter Bastone, your own Princetoniana. Feel free to share them during the group open chat. So now everybody can talk.
Great. Well, I did share I've been purchasing Princetoniana for about 30 years. So I have quite a collection that my wife refuses to put up in my house. So since I have 2 offices, I have an office at home that's all black and orange and an office in Santa Fe, New Mexico that's black and orange. And Karen, I actually have a megaphone. Let me go here. You see that? Do you see it yet? No.
Yeah. Just the edge of it, Peter.
I got the megaphone.
Oh, I see it in the back.
Oh my
God.
Oh
Most
my
of
God.
the classmates don't remember that I was actually a cheerleader at Princeton.
Really?
I remember.
Mini megaphones.
And Karen was also Miss
What
New
about
Jersey.
pom-poms, Peter?
You're also Miss New Jersey, Karen.
No.
Yes, she was.
Mercer County.
Oh, okay.
And
What about their shopping?
my children never let me forget it.
This is my Alumni Council Award for service to Princeton.
Oh, very cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
Wow.
Very cool.
And someone sent me this.
What is that?
It's like a, I don't know, that's really it's just a Princeton thing that's like a.
Maybe a paperweight or something.
Paperweight,
But
essentially.
Sally, when did you get your
That's the
award?
hall.
Because the Tigers are different now.
in 90, at our 10th reunion.
There you
Okay.
go.
Cool.
The-
What,
Yeah.
So
Joe, what was-
A copy
unfortunately,
of the Freshman Herald if you want to know
Whoa.
anybody's birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Very cool.
so unfortunately, most of my Princeton memorabilia is in my office, which I haven't been to in March. But my three favorites, which I'll tell you very quickly, are a class of 1930 blazer that was given to me when we graduated in 1980 by a member of Quad who was there, and he wanted to give it to me because it was my grandfather's class. So I have his class of 1930 blazer. I also have original ticket stubs and a program from a 1934 Princeton-Yale football game, which I love. And I also have a full case of the original Princeton metal beer cans.
Oh,
Picture of the drunk tiger that say compliments of Budweiser.
Yes.
They're not made and not available anymore. So those are
Wow.
my three favorites.
Nice.
Very cool.
so here
Well, I
is
have a place called Princeton, given to me by my parents in 1990, which is a fantastic book, and I recommend it to everyone if you can find it.
Very
so
cool.
here's something from the early 1900s. It's a toy, but it's a jalopy, a Princeton jalopy. You can see the Princeton Yale on the tire there.
Yeah,
And versus Yale. So you sort of
Wow.
see that.
wow.
I have
That
a
is
bill
great.
for, I have a bill for $270,000 for my son Eric's education. Not really.
There's one more thing. This is a,
have
you
one
know,
of
this in the
The Nassau Inn.
Triangle.
Nassau Inn. It's you know, in the Yankee Doodle room.
Yankee
And
Doodle.
it's a
Oh, okay,
postcard.
that's
A
what that is.
postcard. That's a rendering that was done by Norman Rockwell, and on the
Wow.
other side, it's signed by Norman Rockwell.
Very nice.
So
Peter, you have an amazing collection.
Amazing.
Little did we know.
you know, I'm that crazy.
Peter, what was the first collection? What was the first piece in the collection? What did you buy first?
You're gonna laugh if I can find. I'll show it to you. Hold on a second.
So
I
is that
also
a
saw that
special
Eddie was
Princeton
holding
room?
something up.
And that room is the Princeton room in your house? Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
this is my altar.
Your
So,
altar.
This is I have a matching set of a pitcher and cups. This is a Princeton football player from
Wow.
the 1800s. The cup is
Wow.
like a football.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Beautiful.
So that was the first thing I bought. So, and
So
I'm
it's
gonna
all
ask
more-
everybody
let me tell
who's,
you, none of my kids went to Princeton, so they don't want any of this stuff. So there's gonna be a huge donation when I kick the bucket. You know,
Gary,
so-
I hope you're hearing that.
can everybody send some of their key items, photos to Van? Because this is amazing, isn't it, Van? This would be a
Yeah,
great
I've actually
collection.
got my own. This was a gift a couple of years ago. It's a banner from 1940, and you can see the
The
kind of
upside down.
antique
Turn
writing
it
on
over,
it.
Van. It's upside down.
Huh.
There you
Okay,
go.
there you go.
There you go.
And the other thing I have, it's kind of, I look more for literary examples of Princeton. I actually have stumbled on a couple of things. One was a book from 1929 called In Princetown, and it was short stories written by a member of the class of 27, I believe. And I just found it at a tag sale, and I finally read it, and it's all about campus. It's written in this very arch, late 1920s style. The interesting thing, it never mentions Princeton, but obviously it is Princeton. And then there's another book that I found, y'all have probably heard of it, The Ugly American. If you've ever read it, the main character is a fictional member of the class of 1932, who's the ambassador in a fictional country in Southeast Asia in the 1950s, trying to make things work. And I wrote about both of these in a blog post. So you just never know what kind of Princeton stuff you're going to find just kind of stumbling over it.
Wow.
I have the latest entry for the year 2020.
All right.
Perfect.
Very good.
And
Art,
here's
very
mine.
good.
Yeah, very
Eddie, you're
nice.
muted.
And what
Yeah,
is
and
that,
I'm trying to
Eddie?
figure out what Eddie's looking at because that looks interesting.
Here are, this is the commencement program from 1877.
Wow.
Wow.
You know, full whatever inside.
Wow.
There are Class Day exercise invitations from 1877.
Wow.
Wow.
And then here is Class Day exercise program also from 1877.
Eddie, where did you get these?
Well, I do a lot of hunting around antiques, actually. I have an assortment of mugs from the 20s. I have Princeton banner from 49, 61, and ours from 80. And then I have two kids who went in 16 and 20. I also have accumulated recordings, 78s, which were from the 40s of the Nassoons.
Oh, man.
Wow.
And which play on wind-up Victrolas, not like that one, but others. That's a cylinder player, but on a flat disc. And I guess I don't know what they are because I don't drink, but either not martini glasses or something, Princeton emblems on them. And then a bronze. This was the best. It probably was illegally acquired, not by me. I paid for it, but it's a bronze shield, about this big, right? Bigger than my head, right? Big Princeton shield, bronze, mounted on a board. And I bought that at auction, actually.
I think Gary's been looking for that for the last 20 years. No?
Yeah, well, let me change my address on here then.
There is one thing I'm
Let me
looking
down.
for that I haven't been able to find. I have a thing for freshman heralds. And when I was an undergraduate, I made sure I had all the freshman heralds for all the classes that were there when 79 was there. The only one I don't have is 76. So I've been scouring the world for 76s.
Right.
How much are you willing to pay, Gary?
Let's talk about that offline. Okay, sounds good.
Exactly. Wow. Very impressive.
So the one other thing I have is this Fire It Up chart. It says Fire It Up, and it's an advertisement for the Princeton bonfire. I guess, we don't know what year, but it's on November 24th, and it's a picture of the Yale Bulldog on a piece of dynamite. So I thought that was
Subtle.
Very
subtle.
nice.
That's great. And I think with this wonderful introduction, who knew we had such a wealth of Princetoniana among us? We're going to move to the featured program of the evening. And I just wanted to say, it was Julie Bellett's great idea to do these open chats. And I'm always amazed at how well it works, even with, almost 40 people on the Zoom. And we're now going to mute everyone in order for Gary to give his presentation, but to set it up, we're going to do another quick poll about how much Princeton stuff you have around the house. So please take a few moments to type in.
Most of all my reunion. I have most of all my reunion costumes.
I don't see anything posted yet.
The poll should be on your screen or on top.
It did come up.
Things that you saved that, you know, on it.
Are you on your iPad, Peter? Try swiping. See if this
Oh.
will come.
Okay.
Try swiping. I don't
And
know if it'll come.
I'm seeing that we have no responses saying I don't have any.
All right.
It's kind of a self-selecting audience.
All right.
Van.
31 of 33, so I'm going to show the results. Here you go. Wow, reunion costumes seem to be the main thing.
Yeah.
I
You
would
never
just like-
know.
I don't know, Memento. Cool.
I would just like to add one last thing that I've accumulated. These and these are all Princeton postcards from an assortment of years and, assortment of scenes. But what I find very intriguing is several of them are written on with, this one's from 1911 postmark, for instance. And when I've purchased them, they're, when you get them from a dealer, they're often lined up in a box under categories. And sometimes you can find a small grouping. And I've seen stories of students from one year to the next, where 1911, had such a great visit when you came down to Princeton and we saw them beat Dartmouth or whatever. And then you see a card from the following year where they're saying, I really enjoyed seeing Aunt Susie, or thanks for coming to New York. And, some of the stories that you can at least weave in your head can be very interesting.
Very cool. There's a whole narrative there.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's a real narrative here.
So I was gonna, we're gonna bring in Bill to introduce Gary formally, but before this great collection was revealed by everyone, I was gonna ask Wendy, who has a great collection of her own, to show one thing she's especially proud of. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that anyway, Wendy, even though.
Boy, it's hard to pick. I've got my big tiger next to me, and then I'll just share some tiger ears with you.
Adorable.
The best. Good work, Wendy.
Very nice.
And on that note, I'll hand the floor over to Bill Natbunny, who's planned this great evening tonight with Gary, which has brought so many of us together sharing these things that who knew we had collected them. So hi, Bill.
Hey, Wendy, thanks very much. I'm glad to see we almost have 40 participants now, so happy to see that. No trivia tonight, at least from me, but maybe there'll be some from Gary. I wanted to introduce my friend and fellow Quadrangle Club member, Gary King, from the great class of 1979. Gary is a longtime Brooklynite and basically has spent all his life in Brooklyn and Princeton. I like to call him Mr. Princeton. I'm sure if he scraped his knee, he would bleed orange and black. Gary is very dedicated to Princeton, very dedicated to a lot of Princeton's causes. He spent most of his business career with IBM. And with respect to Princeton, his resume, would take an hour to go through, but he's, basically, member of his 5th reunion committee. He's been the P-Rate chair for his 20th. He chaired his 35th reunion. He served as president of his class. He's been class historian. He's been on the Alumni Council Executive Committee. He's received numerous awards from Princeton over the years. He is a member of and has been chair of Quad's Historical Committee. He's been involved in Princetoniana. He joined the Princetoniana Committee in 2007 and continues as a member. He served as the Princetoniana Committee vice chair between 2013 and 15 and the chairman between 2015 and 2017. So, Gary is Mr. Trivia. You might recognize his voice. He was the P-Raid narrator from the virtual P-Raid that we had for our reunion this year. He's been the honorary P-Raid marshal. And of course, I don't know if anyone can match this, but he has been to every Princeton reunion and P-Raid since 1978.
Wow.
So, with that, to kind of give us a little bit of historical background on how Princeton keeps its trivia and traditions going, and hopefully a couple of good stories, I turn it over to my friend Gary King. And Gary, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Well, Bill, and class of 1980, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for allowing me to share tonight. I hope I can live up to all of the things which you said in advance. I think I started on this trail, very early on, because like the class of 1980, the class of 1979 was very, very fortunate. We were introduced to all things Princeton by the one and the only Freddie Fox. And from the day that you see Freddie Fox sort of run across the stage at Alexander Hall, you're just sort of infected. So I believe that I was truly infected. And yes, my blood would probably go orange and black if I nicked myself. But I need to just want to give you a little bit of understanding of what Princetoniana Committee does and what we do. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen for a second and just go into a little bit of the history of Princetoniana. Everybody should know, okay, come on, go forward. Oops, all right. Everybody knows Freddie Fox. Freddie Fox was a member of the class of 1939. Sadly, he passed away in 1981, the year after you graduated. But not many people know what his background was. He was an ordained minister. So after 1939, he actually did leave Princeton. He probably would have stayed if he had the opportunity to, but at the time, Princeton was like, unless you were going to get a graduate degree, go out and see the world. So he became an ordained minister. He served as a missionary overseas. In the 1950s, he was actually a speechwriter for the Eisenhower administration, which sort of explains why the Mudd archives actually have a number of letters in their possession from Eisenhower. He was appointed Princeton's second recording secretary in 1964, so right after his 25th reunion, and he was appointed the first and thus far only keeper of Princetoniana in 1976. And one of the things he wrote that was said at his memorial service, once upon a time, there was a little boy who came to Princeton and lived happily ever after. And that really does describe Freddie Fox in every single memory that we have of Freddie Fox. When he passed away in 81, his classmate and almost as good of a keeper of Princetoniana was Bud Wynn. He continued Freddie Fox's legacy, and he worked with the Alumni Association to establish a real standing Princetoniana committee. And there is a memorial dedicated to Bud Wynn in the Mudd Library. It was dedicated in 2010. And if anybody goes to the campus center, the Frisk Campus Center, there is a great portrait of Freddie Fox that's in there with this wonderful tiger. Look where that tiger is from. Oh yeah, the class of 1979 paper mache tiger staring lovingly at the Freddie Fox portrait on the first level of Frisk that Bud Wynn made sure was there along with Freddie's wife.
Hey, Gary, do you remember the first time you met Freddie Fox? Because the first time I met him, he was standing outside of Nassau Hall, handing out plate blocks of the Nassau Hall stamp, 3-cent stamp, which has a picture of Nassau Hall on it, the United States Postal Stamp. And I still have that to this day and give it out to people I interview for Princeton. Do you remember the first time?
I don't think I actually met him face to face, believe it or not.
Wow.
Other than at Alexander Hall. And I remember the date, September 9th, 1975. That was the day that the class first got together in Alexander Hall. However, one of my roommates and a friend of ours got together and we put together a trivia question that was in the Prince. And we did not give it the name. This is all up to the editors of the Prince. And the name of the trivia post was, "Is Princeton trivial?" And it had 10 very simple questions in there, one of which was probably apocryphal and would probably not pass muster today. But Freddie Fox did send us a signed postcard, and no offense to the class of 80 or the class of 2013, because my friend Jamie is on here, but the postcard basically read, what is it that makes classes that end with a 9 so special? And Jeff Shallett and Kathy Catanzaro Orderway and I were the ones who put together the quiz. And when we got the postcard, because it was addressed to all three of us, it was like we drew straws to see who got it. Guess who has the postcard in his file cabinet in Brooklyn? So that is probably one of the most speaking about pieces of Princetoniana, that is probably one of the most valuable pieces of Princetoniana I had, a signed postcard, personalized postcard from Freddie Fox. But
And his son was a TV producer, right?
I think so. I think
Right,
so.
and he produced shows like Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley and other things like that. So I think Family Ties or Family Matters, just to let you know. Okay.
Yeah, but Freddie was a great guy. I have a great picture of him riding a bicycle through the P-Raid. It's like, if anybody could not walk through the P-Raid, it would be Freddie Fox on his bicycle, which was sort of his symbolic emblem, walking around town actually riding around town in his bicycle. Now, what the Princetoniana Committee does, we do preserve and record the history and traditions of Princeton University. Probably the thing we've worked hardest on over the years is the virtual Princetoniana Museum. Because the university doesn't have an alumni building other than McLean House, there's no place that we can show off all the artifacts that we might have. So for a number of years, we were trying to struggle with the ways, how do we get all of this information out to the public for all of that which we have? And thanks to my vice chair and my successor as chair of the Princetoniana Committee, Tom Swift of the great class of 1976, we finally created the Princetoniana Museum. And we have a lot of different collections in there, including the Bob Rogers 56 jacket collection, links to the oral histories, which are personal stories from Princetonians. And we have different things that we do. And I want to talk a little bit about our pre-raid, our step sings, our locomotive pins, the Princetoniana take it or leave it tent at reunions, and P-Bay, which I'm surprised. Who knows about P-Bay? Okay, I'm going to just get off of that and can you just raise your hands? Anybody know about P-Bay? Okay, nobody knows about P-Bay.
I think Van did.
No P-Bay. Okay, all right. So we're going to have to correct that. All right, so let me go back to sharing. All right, so one of the best things that's in the Princetoniana Museum is our jacket collection. And if you have not seen the jacket collection is on display. Selected ones are on display every reunions in Frist at the campus center. So you can go down and see several samples of the jackets. Now I mention the jackets because the jackets, some of them are wild, some of them are sedate, and you can see some of the differences there, but some of them are a trend. So does everybody understand the difference between your parent class and your grandparent class and your child class? Okay, I don't see anybody shaking their heads or anything. Okay, so here's an example. The class of 1933 has this great orange and black striped jacket. Well, their child class honored them by using the same orange and black striped jacket when they got theirs at their 25th reunion. And their child class, the class of 1983, the grandchild class of the class of 33, has basically the same design. So the next time you're at reunions, in a year that ends with a 3 or an 8, take a look at the class of 33, 58, and 83, because basically they have the same design of the jacket. Now, the people from the class of 83 will tell you ours is a little bit different because it's 0.83 inch wide, but basically it's an orange and black striped jacket. Those are good jackets. Those are ones that you can certainly say, yep, this personifies Princeton. Sometimes some classes make a couple of mistakes. So on the left, you can see here the class of 1951's 25th reunion jacket. And I'll quiz everybody by saying, does anybody know why their jacket was like that? Because it's certainly not your traditional orange and black that you would expect. Oh, guys, it's all silence out there. Come on.
They put together a bunch of other jackets, pieces of other jackets.
When was their 25th reunion? Yeah, exactly. So they went for the brilliant idea of having, hey, let's have a bicentennial jacket for our 25th reunion. That one didn't last so long. So they got rid of that, and you can see their current sample of what their current reunion jacket is. So one of the things that we learned about jackets as we go through all of this is that you get your 25th reunion jacket, and then sometimes people keep it forever. Sometimes people change it. Sometimes people change it really, really quickly, as the class of 51 really did. Then you have great classes like the class of 66. They had a very austere, quiet, calm 25th reunion jacket. And then they decided to get a new jacket for their 50th reunion. And in that one, they went the exact opposite direction. They went wild and crazy. And on their jacket, they have a picture of every single one of their major reunion logos. So they went from the austere to the a little bit crazy. So that's one of the interesting things that you learn when you get with the jacket. Then we have the wonderful class of 1970. Now, how many people know about the class of 1970? Okay, so I have Joe there. So okay, what are the things that you know about the class of 1970?
Well, aside from the fact that it was the class of filmmaker and bon vivant of Dan Berkowitz, it took place during one of the cicada blooms, as it were, as you hear the lovely sound of chattering cicadas everywhere. And they decided to honor that by making the how did they term it there? The tiger peed.
Well, yeah, Joe, very good, but that's exactly right. The class of 1970 graduated during one of the Brood 10 when they sort of all emerged out of the ground. It was so notable that Bob Dylan, who received an honorary degree in 1970, wrote his song "Day of the Locust" because of the cicadas at Princeton. And yes, indeed, the class of 1970 did indeed adopt that as their logo. You can see their class logo for their 40th and their 30th, and every reunion before that was this wonderful interpretation of the cicada within the shield of Princeton. So much so that when you look at their jackets, that is exactly what you see in their class jacket. And marching in the P-Raid for many years has been the class of 1970 70-P'd. That goes along with them. That's actually predate. That's been there since like their 19th reunion. And it comes back every single year. I think it's almost every single classmate and every single child of the class has marched in this 70-P that winds its way through the P-Raid year after year after year. And you really can't tell, but in the class of 70s jacket that has a little bug is right in there. But that's not the only animal that has been in the P-Raid. We've had, for some reason, the class of 1933 continued to bring out Elsie the cow. It's really bizarre that they do have Elsie the cow and picking up after Elsie the cow right afterwards. But that sign above them said, "That's no bull," for whatever reasons. You would expect, though, that there have been tigers in the P-Raid. There have been quite a number of tigers in the P-Raid. The class of 72 has had a tiger in the P-Raid. The class of 60 has had tigers in the P-Raid. The class of 72, again, has had tigers in the P-Raid.
Gary, wasn't there a problem with one of the tigers in one of the past parades?
I'm glad you asked that question. So take a very, very good look at this. So the class of 1964 has had a tiger in the P-Raid. And at their 20th reunion in 1984, they actually had a cage around the tiger, and the tiger marched through the P-Raid, which sounds very clever. But during that time, this is before 1991, when the P-Raid route was changed from going through Prospect and went down Elm Drive. But so here you have a bunch of people carrying this wonderful four-sided cage through the campus, and they're going to go around Murray Dodge and down by 1879 Hall. And as you march down 1879 Hall, you have steps. And you have four-sided cage with no grounding underneath it. And this is one of the joys of an oral history. Tom Swift, again, class of 76, interviewed Stu Duncan from the class of 50, who had been one of the marshals of the P-Raid. But by the time this happened, he was no longer a marshal. And he was standing down at the bottom of the steps at 79 Arch as these wonderful cage holders were holding the cage. And as they were carrying the cage down, they were lifting it up. And what happens to the tiger? The tiger gets loose and is out free, roaming down the steps of 1879 Hall. And as Stu tells the story, as he walks down, he started walking towards this cute little girl who was probably looking, oh, look at the cute cat coming my way. And Stu collected himself after the shock of seeing this tiger free and grabbed the tiger by the neck and held it until these wonderful cage holders could bring the cage back over the tiger. So that's one of the things you learn when you do some of these oral histories. You get some of these very strange stories about strange things which happen thanks to our love of tigers and the orange and black. One other thing that the Princetoniana Committee does is it sponsors some of the step sings. Now, again, I'm going to ask a question of everybody here, and don't, how many people remember your step sing? Oh, okay, I am shocked. I'm absolutely shocked. You remember your step sing? Okay, because I remember my step sing very well.
Yeah, they gave us that little booklet with all the songs in them.
Yes, they surely did. And I was one of 20 people who attended the class of 1979 senior step sing on the steps of Nassau Hall. And this question, how many people attended 80s step sing? Because again, if there were 20 people at 79 step sing, that was a lot.
Well, I did because I was hosed by the Nassoons and the Footnotes. I couldn't get into the singing group. So that was the only opportunity I had to sing under the arch. Hey, Karen's laughing. Karen's laughing because she knows.
Well, I didn't, despite the fact that I sing now, I wasn't a singer back then, but I went to the step sing, because it happened on Baccalaureate Sunday, and there was nobody there. But we did get the booklet, and somewhere in all the archives I have the booklet. Well, thanks to the Princetoniana Committee, this is no longer sort of a haphazard, catch as catch can. This is now one of the major events, and Jamie could probably tell you about that. Because I was at his senior step sing in 2013. This is a significant event, and this actually happened. It used to happen on Sunday night after baccalaureate at about 10 o'clock at night, and everybody gathers on the steps. Since the whole class gathers together, they gather together on the steps of Blair Arch. And then there was another tradition that sort of evolved. It's like, well, if we have a P-raid when everybody leaves campus, what happens when people come to campus? Well, now there is something called the freshman or now first year pre-raid that Princetoniana also sponsors, that after baccalaureate, you march out of the chapel, you march into the Fitz-Randolph Gate, because now it is now totally forbidden to march out of Fitz-Randolph Gate. I don't ever remember this. As much as I love Princeton lore, I never remember this whole thing about, oh no, if you march out of Fitz-Randolph Gate as an undergraduate, you won't graduate. It's like, I walked in and out of that gate so many times. I guess I'm surprised I actually do have a diploma from the university. But now it's totally forbidden. So you walk in and that's it. You don't walk out of Fitz-Randolph Gate ever again until you walk out after you graduate. But now the P-rate goes through there. You have lunch on Alexander Beach, which is again a new term. We never called it Alexander Beach. And then there is now this massive freshman pre-raid and freshman step sing. So this was the freshman step sing for the class of 2018 back in September of 2014.
Oh.
And there is the senior step sing for the class of 2018 in June of 2018. It is a massive event. Parents actually come to the senior step sing. They sing and it's amazing, which is sort of contrary to the freshman step sing that are like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? And they really have no clue as to what they're doing. Now, the one thing that the Princetoniana Committee does do at the senior step sing is we hand out these really cool locomotive pins that teach everybody how to say the locomotive the right way. It's hip, hip, rah, 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 tiger, 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 sis, 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 boom, boom, boom. Ah, Princeton, Princeton, Princeton. Now, if you say sis, boom, ba, you probably went to a school in New Haven. Now, the tradition of the locomotive, okay, I'm hoping everybody knows the history of the locomotive, but if you don't, I'll share with you the history of the locomotive cheer. Locomotive cheer actually started as a skyrocket cheer when the 7th Regiment from New York marched through the Princeton campus or the College of New Jersey campus on their way to the Civil War. And it simply was sis, 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 boom, boom, boom. And since they were skyrockets, you looked at them and said, ah. But it did evolve over the years to become the locomotive cheer. And it's a locomotive cheer because as you're saying it, you're supposed to have an arm movement that's like the piston on a locomotive, and it gets faster, faster, faster when you say sis, 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 boom, boom, boom. Ah. But we hand these out. Now, that's the good thing. The bad thing is because, as I said, at the senior step sing, you have all of the parents and aunts and uncles and sisters and brothers of all of the graduating seniors there. And here we are, members of the Princetoniana committee, trying to make sure that we hand them out only to the graduating seniors. But of course, with relatives there, can I get one too? It's like, these are only for the graduating seniors. Are you sure you don't have any extra? It's like, no. And we've actually had people reach their hand into the baskets where we're trying to hand them out to try to grab them. The only solace I get is half the time the pins are open on the back and they prick their fingers. But there is a bit of a challenge with that. But if you're ever in Princeton, now that the senior step sing has been moved to Monday night, the prom is now Sunday night, and the senior step sing is Monday night. But if ever you find yourself in Princeton on a Monday night right after reunions and you want to get even more orange and black than you already have, we could certainly use a few more people to hand out the locomotive pins only to the graduating seniors. So, but it's a great event. There's a lot of enthusiasm there, and I would certainly recommend it. If you're in town, and that's one way that keeps me there for even longer. My weekends are very long when it comes down to that. Now, you were talking about memorabilia. A couple of years ago, the Princetoniana committee came up with this idea of a take it or leave it tent for those people who might think they have too much Princetoniana lore. The tent is set up on Thursday, and it's right there through the end of reunions weekend. If you really don't know what to do with all of your Princeton stuff, if your non-Princeton spouse really wants you to clean out your orange and black, you can bring it down to the take it or leave it tent. Because as you can see, there are certainly a number of people who will want to pick up anything you leave behind. And I will admit, yes, I've done that too. I came very, 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 very close to picking up a class of 2013 Making Mischief 5th reunion costume. But I said, what am I going to do with the class of 2013 Making Mischief costume? Even though it was a pretty good one, but I'm sure it appealed to all the Harry Potter fans out there because it was actually a rather clever costume that they had there. But the take it or leave it tent is really one of the things that always seems very busy. If you go in the morning, you'll see a lot of stuff there. You'll go back an hour later, it's all gone. There's certainly definitely a need for an exchange. So the next time you're at reunions, don't miss the take it or leave it tent. And before I talk about this, I did say, does everybody know about, so nobody knew about P-Bay.
No.
Okay, P-Bay. I haven't gotten my P-Bay notice yet today. P-Bay is a list. It is curated by Bambi Tsui from the class of 2009, who was the young alumni recipient of the award for service to Princeton. He puts this together every Sunday night. He goes out there and scours eBay and Etsy for any new items that have appeared of Princeton, anything, books, letters, postcards, mugs, beer cans, anything like that. He'll put it together in an email and it's sent out to hundreds of Princetonians every Sunday. As I said, I haven't got my P-Bay notice yet. I'm still looking for that freshman herald from the class of 1976. But if you are interested, just send, I can find out, but send Bambi a note and he can put you on the P-Bay list. And every Sunday night, you'll get a listing of all the new information that's out there. As I said, he does books. So there's always Nassau Heralds and bric-a-bracs that are listed out there. There are reunions cans that are listed. There's a category for eating club memorabilia. They once had this absolutely beautiful, sorry, Bill, this beautiful ceramic quad pitcher. And I was very tempted to get it, but it was gone before I could get it. Then I found out where it went to. One of my classmates, his spouse got it for him for his birthday. So at least it went to a good home for another quad alum. But it's a great listing. It certainly does more than I could ever do. And I'm still amazed by everything that Bambi does. And another one of the things that Bambi does is he has been the real guts behind the Princetoniana Museum. So the Princetoniana Museum
If
has,
there's a way you could share an email for him.
I will do that. I will go back to one of my,
on the chat or whatever, that would be great.
yeah, I'm going to go back and look to see what his official email is, because he always puts it at the bottom of the P-Bay notice. And I should have thought about that beforehand. But yeah, hey, you know, it's been 41 years since I left Princeton. The one good thing about the Princetoniana Museum, and it is divided into several categories, just like you were going through wings of a museum. It talks about the campus, it talks about collectibles and eating clubs, but you can also search by your class. So for example, there is, you could click on by class and then look at the undergraduate class of 1980. And these are some of the items which are in the Princetoniana Museum for the class of 1980. It's got a couple of your beer cups out there and a copy of both your class jacket and of your beer jacket. And because we've just opened up a Triangle Club wing, it has the program from 1980 for Triangle. So, there are multiple ways of looking at the information. Again, I just salute Bambi for the work that he's done behind there, but he's made it very easy for us IT novices to put more information in there. But the one thing that we rarely talk about are old traditions, like the Budman, who hasn't been at a P-rate for a very long time. But he was there in 1979, and he was there at least through 1983. Bud is still around, but we're getting a lot of artisanal beers too, because the last time I went to a 25th reunion, they had more different types of beers than you could shake a stick at. When we were graduates, it was just Bud.
Well, yeah, and Gary, you'll recall that the metal beer cans that I mentioned earlier, with the picture of the drunk tiger on them, did say compliments of Budweiser on them. So at least at that time, Bud was the major beer brand for reunions. And I suspect that has changed, and that's why no more Budman.
Right. But I think the legend goes that Princeton Reunions was the second largest consumer of Budweiser after the Indianapolis 500. Which I'm not sure is a good or a bad thing, but I'll take any record that we can get. I mean, speaking of odd records, I think it's the class of 1997 actually has a Guinness Book of World Record because they have the most number of people dressed in tennis whites, because that was one of their themes. It was 15 love, and their theme was a tennis theme. So they were all dressed in tennis whites. So they have the record for the most number of people at one point in tennis whites. So if you have any questions, Frank Derby is the current chair from the great class of 1984. Gene Hendry from the graduate class of 1980 is the current vice chair of the Princetoniana Committee. But it is a committee of chairs. I mean, there's so many chairs who are still on the committee. Usually for the Alumni Council, if you have been a chair, you usually have to step down and step away from the committee. Not Princetoniana, because we have a wealth of information. But there is a favor that I will ask of any of you. Considering all of the information you have out there, there is a new project we're starting on Princetoniana. And I'll preface it by saying this is sort of, when you open your mouth and make a suggestion, somebody will take you up on that suggestion. So how many people here have been to the new One World Trade Center? Okay, have you ridden in that elevator and that shows you that great ride from what New York used to look like when it was first settled in the 1600s? And you go up and you see the city being built around you until you're surrounded by the new tower. I always said it would be great to see the campus, get a dynamic picture of the campus as it grew from just being Nassau Hall to what it is today as it continues to evolve. So, great suggestions, don't go ignored. So now there is a maps project that we are working on Princetoniana. So if anybody has some old maps of the university, please feel free to scan them and share them. Send them to me if anybody, because we're working on that, because since I opened my mouth and made that suggestion, we're running with it. And I'm working on the committee with a couple of other members, Dan Lepresti and Nick.
And Gary, am I correct that if people want to join the Princetoniana committee, that is something that they can do, right? I think that's right. So
we are open to anybody joining. The only thing that we ask is if you do join the Princetoniana committee, be prepared to do some work. Be prepared to do some research out there.
Great.
That's
Well,
the only thing.
this has been really wonderful. And, I want to really thank you for the good stories, for the history, for telling us about what's out there for us to look at. Does anyone have any questions for Gary?
Bill, I have a bit of Princetoniana that I just recalled and would like to share. I went to, I obviously at Princeton, I lived in Edwards, and my senior year, I was doing sculpture and some carving in, the art quad, and they were doing repairs on Edwards. And so there were some blocks of sandstone at Edwards that they were taking out and replacing with good ones because they were broken. So anyway, this is my piece of Princeton, which if you look at this, it's a carving, abstract on this side, and then we're now all quite mature. So on this side, it goes from abstract to a bit more figurative. And so this is my piece of Princeton, actually a piece of the dorm that I lived in when I was a senior at school at Princeton. And so anyway, all of a sudden I realized, wait, when people come by and say, well, this is my piece of Princeton.
That is really amazing.
That's pretty wild. Thank you, John.
And Gary, I'll share with you that Rob Smiley, one of our classmates, is the one who did that New Yorker poster showing Princeton at the center of the world.
Yes.
I love that poster.
Beautiful. Mm.
Right.
Hey, I have a quick question, Gary. What is the dorm that is shown in A Beautiful Mind?
Say again. What's the
Beautiful Mind in the movie? Which is the dorm that is shown in there with the main?
That's a good question. It would help if I had seen the movie. Believe it or not, I'm not a big movie goer. I think the last time
supposed to be Blair. I can't remember.
It was probably supposed to be. It's probably Blair because Blair is one of the most iconic, except for the fact I love Lockhart Hall because I love the pointed arch there.
Well, I assumed that it was the arch over Campbell because I lived right over that arch, so I just assumed it was my room, but it's probably not. So that's why I wanted to know.
Well, actually, that's an interesting point because Campbell has a beautiful arch as well, and the class of '77, and we're not talking 1977, we're talking 1877, actually created a ceramic tower that they gave out to everybody on their 40th reunion. All the returning members of the class of 1877, when they came back in 1917, actually got a replica of Campbell Tower. And you can see as you go over the arch, as you go under the arch, it'll both say Campbell Hall, and it actually will have a lot of motifs of the class of '77.
Mm. Gary,
so which is totally aside from being the beautiful mind, but never mind.
Gary, a question that popped up.
For Gary.
I have one.
Joe has one.
A question actually that is in the chat box that I didn't know if you happened to see. I think Karen put it in there. Is there someone now who greets the freshmen in Alexander Hall since Freddie's days?
Okay, things have changed a little bit. How much time do I have, Bill?
I think we're over. I'm gonna have to leave it to Wendy on, maybe we'll answer the question and then move on. Is that?
All right, I'll answer the question briefly, and because
which only shows, Gary, how interested everybody has been in what we're doing. So
right, you haven't been clamoring just shut up already.
No.
Well, all incoming students now have to take part in either outdoor action or what's the other thing called? Community action. So basically you arrive on campus and then you are whisked away from campus in either outdoor action or community action. And while you're on your trip, you're supposed to learn the lyrics to Old Nassau. So what Freddie Fox used to do, all of the leaders of the individual groups are supposed to do. But as I said, you come back, you have Baccalaureate Sunday, and you have the pre-raid and then the lunch on Alexander Beach, and then you gather on the steps of Blair Hall. And then they take the group photo. So there is actually a formal group photo that you take. And I should have actually went to that. The colleges are very important because you actually, as you're coming out in your pre-raid, you wear your college shirt. So you see everybody go by in this multicolored shirt. So there's some who have the Forbes shirt on, some who have the Mavi shirt on with their moose, some with the Rocky shirt. I don't know what it's going to be for First College now instead of Wilson College, but they're all marching through. Then they get a class of whatever shirt. So now everybody's wearing the same t-shirt. And then they go through the step sing. And halfway through the step sing, one of the funniest people I know gets up there. Tom Meeker from the great class of 1956 gets up and introduces the class to the locomotive cheer. And he basically, that spiel, which I just did, is what he gives to the class. And it is priceless. So again, if I would really recommend it, if you're free on that Sunday of Baccalaureate, which is now going to be around the third Sunday in August, come on down, wear your reunion jacket because it is just like the P-Raid is. And then stick around for the freshman step sing and listen to Tom Meeker go through the whole spiel on that. So that's the equivalent. And I really can't give any more of it away because Tom does some unique things that I could not in good public do, but he is totally not embarrassed and gives the class a half moon.
Well, Gary, thank you so much for this history and for all these fun stories. We're going to continue here with our welcome to stay. You're welcome to sign it either way. We're welcome to love to have
I might have to step away because somebody's looking forward to having dinner right now. I've delayed her from having dinner. I've been
Gary,
sequestered
thank you
through
so
the
much.
pandemic.
Really appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. I hope I haven't bored you all to tears.
Not at all.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Great
Thank
job.
Thank you, Gary and Bill. That was an amazing look
Okay.
at what I think.
Back to the MCs on Zoom now.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
That was really an amazing look at what we all agree is a very unique world of Princeton. I'm reminded of when Melody Hobson got an award at Princeton a few years ago. And she said her husband, George Lucas of Star Wars fame, said that Princeton was like a cult. And she looked at him and said, "Really, George?" So, but there is something incredibly special about our Princeton cult. And in a few minutes, Bernardo's going to introduce our next Zoom segment. But before he does, since we're all largely stuck at home, I've been asking everyone lately for suggestions on good shows to stream. Royce, what have you been watching lately?
My wife Alexis and I have been watching a Netflix show that is more interesting than it sounds, called Borgen, which is about Danish politics. And it's actually a great, fascinating human and political drama. And what we'd also like to do now is ask everyone to please, movies, TV shows, books, podcasts, anything that's really you're into these days that's making this time tolerable, could you please throw it into the chat? Because we'd all love to know. And we can save that chat, and we will save the chat and send it to everyone. So if you could do that, that would be great. And Wendy, let me throw it back to you. What are you watching?
So some of my favorites in no particular order are Homeland, Madam Secretary, Fauda, Game of Thrones, Schitt's Creek, and The Unbecoming. And another top favorite for me, being a longtime F. Scott Fitzgerald fan, is Z, the beginning of everything about Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald. And that leads me into a quick promo for a 1980 talk we have coming up, thanks to Anna Zuckerman-Vidovenko, who it turns out is a childhood friend of one of Z's creators, Nicole Yorkin. So our next 1980 Tiger Talk will be a fireside chat with Nicole. And Nicole and I spoke on Friday, and our conversation is going to include some never heard before information as well as clips from the series. So that will take place on Wednesday, December 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And please watch for a future email about it.
That sounds very interesting. Let me throw another promo in for Stephen Humphreys, our classmate who's with us tonight, for a little safe culture in your life. He's going to be giving us a live virtual museum tour of his incredible collection of Vietnamese art. And that will be happening on Wednesday, January 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So please watch for that alert as well.
And I had the opportunity to do a sneak preview of Stephen's exhibition, and it's really incredible. And he has such an amazing background. So I encourage you to join both on December 16th and January 13th. And finally, last but far from least, class president Rich Becker has asked me to share the news that our esteemed classmate, Masha Yovanovich, is being honored at the PEN America Awards this Tuesday night, December 8th, where she'll be receiving the PEN Benenson Courage Award. Other honorees include former President Obama, Madeleine Albright, Spike Lee, and Bono of U2. So Masha is in good company. And if you're interested in attending, Karen's putting a registration link for the event in our Zoom chat. And that ends our class update. So Bernardo, are you ready to take us into the fishbowl and explain how it works?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see everyone. Just want to check with you about timing. Do you want to just do the fishbowl, or do you want to split the time between that and the breakouts?
I think we should probably do a fishbowl and a breakout. Royce, what do you think?
Sure, and we'll just
Let me
keep the
see if we
breakout
can do
short.
that. Let me try, because the fishbowl, okay, I'll try to do that. I'll do my best. So here's how this fishbowl works. Basically, well, before I explain how it works, let me just say we've been hearing some wonderful things about the past. It was a little bit of a trip down memory lane, and it's creating some new memories for me of Princeton, right? Things I never knew, but sort of a new story. So I realized I kind of escaped the present, but we thought, like, let's bring ourselves into some of what we're sharing. I know here in California, throughout the country, the pandemic is actually getting worse, and we've all been trying to cope with it. And something that connects all of us is, you know, we all have to deal with that in one way or another, whether we want to or not. And so we thought we would ask some questions that would help us sort of see how are we doing in this current situation? What are we doing? What are we learning from that? And so that's what the focus will be of some of these things, if that works for you. Now, the way the fishbowl works is I'm going to ask everyone in a moment to stop your video and to hide non-video participants. So the way you stop your video is you click on stop video, but to hide non-video participants, you click on the little caret next to stop video or start video. There's a little menu that pops up, and then you click on video settings, okay? And click on video settings, and you scroll down and click on hide non-video participants. So that way, when people hide their video, you won't see them, okay? Anybody need more instructions on that? Because this is an important piece of this. Just stop your video. I'll stay on, but everybody else stop your video. And then, yeah, you got it. And then hide non-video participants, so you only see those who have the video still, which is right now me and Karen and Ben.
Where is that hide non-video? Is that?
Are you on a computer?
Yeah.
Okay, look where your video, where it says stop video, right next to it, there's a little caret, you know, pointing up, a caret. You click on that, and a little menu opens up, and you click on video settings, and then you scroll down, and you should see, you know, there's your image and your camera information.
Hide non-video participants, right?
Hide non-video participants. You should have a little check mark next to it that you should put on, and that will hide everyone whose video is off. You got that, Louis?
Bernardo,
Go ahead.
I'm on the telephone. I'm on an iPhone, so I don't see it on the phone.
Okay, there should be another menu. I'm sorry, I don't have all the different instructions.
What you do is you click on the three dots again, and it'll say hide non-video participants.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
These three dots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if somebody knows how to do it. Sorry, I didn't have the instructions for every possible device.
On the three dots, go to meeting settings.
Yes, yeah, and then on video, you hide non-video, okay? I'm gonna keep going while you figure that out, okay?
Okay.
But you can stop your video for the moment anyway. Okay, so here's what's gonna happen. And Louis, can you stop your video as well? Okay, and Fran? Okay, there you go. Now you just see me. Now I just talk for half an hour and that's it. No, just kidding.
I can't.
Basically, I'm gonna give you a prompt. I'm gonna ask you a question. And if this is true for, and why don't you mute yourself as well? If the question I ask you is true for you, then and you want to come in, you come into the circle and you'll be on, you turn on your video and turn on your audio if this question is true for you, okay? So,
Bernardo, just one question. All people have to do is click start video. They don't have to go back in their settings. Is that right?
Thank you. Exactly.
Okay.
You got it. So Fran just anticipated my question there. Yes. Like what Fran did. You just come on and then you'll be seeing whoever is on. Okay. Any questions about the technique? I'm trying to keep this simple. Okay. So basically we'll have a little circle in the middle and everybody else can listen and we'll just be talking for a few minutes and then we'll switch the prompt and try something else. Okay. So if you've moved or changed jobs during the pandemic, turn your video, if you're willing to come into the circle and chat about it, turn your video on and turn on your sound and come on in. If you've moved or changed jobs during the pandemic.
Wow, it's only three of us.
Wow, only two people. That's not true for me. Although I'm still working, I'm working a lot more. Joe too. Okay. So anybody else who wants to, who has done that, join in, but how was that process for you? What made it easier or harder in this situation? And what did you
I'll throw out first, if that helps at all. In my case, it wasn't exactly something I was seeking. It was a personality conflict with a new general manager who did not have good employee manager relations in mind and basically made things quite unpleasant. And so I thought, I'm not going to last here. So I think I'll start looking. And then part of the problem was that because of the pandemic, we were shorthanded. We were very stretched thin. We did not have enough people to do the work that needed to be done. And it was just causing too much stress for everyone. And it finally hit this guy who was, general manager and wasn't doing a good job. And he finally just walked out the door one day and never came back. And so, okay, I guess it was a good thing that I started looking for another job because things are really going to be a mess here. And then suddenly one of the interviews I went to, I got an offer and I'm actually starting that job tomorrow.
Oh, good luck, Joe. Wow, that's great. So what about
you.
John? John.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
I mean, mine probably doesn't count because I ended up just retiring, but it is a change in routine dramatically from having worked intensively as an executive for 40 years. Retiring is a change. So it's a new job and focusing on new things. So probably doesn't count in the same way because it was actually moving away from any stress that I was experiencing. So,
but I imagine that the pandemic situation makes it different than it might have been a year ago, for example, in terms of the way you connect or disconnect from people.
Yeah, no, and our plan was to actually, with my wife and I, do quite a bit of traveling and begin engaging with people and really kind of almost shifting from a focus on work and career to a focus on our, on friends and people and, kind of, and so we've had to just comfortably sort of put that on pause,
Okay. What about you, Bill?
Well, we moved back east because Jay's youngest sister died last November, and we bought a place here in January. We closed it in January. We didn't know about the pandemic until after we'd closed on it, and we were already in process. So we ended up moving. We were going to move in March. We moved in early May because things were crazy back in the east. We moved from California, from the West Coast. Well, they were crazy in the East in terms of arriving during the big blow up in New York. So we came in early May and we've been back and forth. We finally sold our place. still working to get what we were doing going here, which is her art and my music and farming. So
Wow.
we're still in process of settling in. And the pandemic has made it easier in some ways because sort of getting our feet on the ground and not being distracted by so many social events is not a bad thing. But we are starting to miss that, and we are meeting people here. So it's rural, so it's a little less of an impact than it would be in the city for us. You know,
Yeah.
so we moved rural to rural.
Well, thank you all for sharing those stories. And it sounds like, you know, there's not too many people in this group who had this experience, which says to me that we have a certain amount of privilege too, because so many people have lost their jobs or are unemployed or underemployed in this situation. So I guess, you know, certainly I'm thankful for where I am, and I hope that those of you that have those opportunities are as well. But also I recognize that for many of us, it's been a time of transition and challenges. And if not for us personally, then for other people we know. So thank you each for sharing your stories. If you turn off the video now, let me try one more here. If you've been doing volunteer work recently that's making a difference in other people's lives, come on in the fishbowl.
You do that?
Turn your video on. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, or what moved you to do what you're doing, and how it's going, and what you're learning. Anything you want to share? A lot more people. What kind of volunteering that you're doing?
I'm happy to start. I'm an ophthalmologist in Jacksonville, and my hobby is traveling overseas doing cataract surgery. I'm the chief medical officer of a charity called Sea International, and that all shut down. We canceled 200 trips. Pretty much everything from March on has been canceled, and we didn't quite know what to do with the charity and quite what to do with all the volunteer doctors who picked up. And it turns out that there's probably 20 million Americans who've lost their jobs, and in losing their jobs, lost their health insurance. And there's a crying need for volunteer doctors to do cataract surgery right here in the United States. So just last week, I did 15 cases on medically indigent blind citizens of Jacksonville.
Wow. Thank you. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
It's a striking thing to find in your own town, people who can't afford the simplest and least expensive of surgeries.
Yeah, and they're still needed at this time, right? It's not like because of the pandemic, these things go away. Yeah. Although others who want to share a little bit about either what you're doing or what moved you to do it or how it's going, anything you're learning.
I can just say briefly that, as many of you know, one of my passions is education, public education. And, you know, I have been teaching free of charge virtually in high schools around the city, legally related classes, and coaching virtually kids in legally related mock trial and moot court competitions. And I've also been representing a group of homeless people who are in shelters, particularly kids, because New York City is refusing to provide internet service in homeless shelters, thereby preventing children from obtaining virtual education because the New York City schools are closed. So I am involved in the lawsuit that has challenged on a pro bono basis, again, the Department of Homeless Services for not providing internet service for these kids. So those are the two things.
Thanks.
I'll just say briefly, David and I went to Milwaukee in the days before the election to do voter protection and poll watching. And that's something that I'd never done, David had done. And so with that experience, I'm going back to Georgia next month, do the same thing.
Wow, thank you for that, and good luck.
We're not going as far from home to make a difference in Georgia, but we have been writing letters to Sierra Club Independent Action. We've got 60 so far. We're going to keep going because these are infrequent voters that care about the environment, and I think they'd be a good group of people to come out and vote this time.
What about you, Cheryl?
I've been working, yeah, I wrote a grant to one of our local foundations to fund a reopening preparation of 30 churches in the most vulnerable zip codes of Miami, in Little Haiti and Liberty City and North Miami, to help the community get tested, get PPEs, and help the churches figure out how to really bring a safe environment in the church. So we've tested 1,000 people so far. Not 1,000. We have 600. We are trying to get to 1,000 by December, January. Get the churches reopened with infrared thermometers and PPEs and disinfectants and everything.
So what are you learning from this, or what would you say to others based on that experience?
Well, the biggest part is, since we're all Zoom, the digital divide is tough, especially with the poor Haitian churches. Trying to get the congregation to call in or use Zoom. So we've done a lot of streaming and taping and repeating and trying to get the information out. So we do education around coronavirus, mask wearing, nutrition, the vaccine, and how to help make decisions. So it's just been an ongoing difficult, lots of phone calls. And we also give a nurse. That's the biggest part of our budget, is paying for a nurse that the churches can call, the church members can call. So that's been great, because they've been able to call her and get information when they test positive. So, but it's just the digital divide is real.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for testifying to it and for doing something about it.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, it's not as exciting as most of those others, but I've been participating in the mentor program for first generation low income students. And the school matched me with a mentee in Corona in Queens. And we've been doing video chats about once a week since August, walking through all sorts of things involving papers, doing a bunch of mock interviews for her for summer internships. And, you know, it's not restoring sight to the blind or helping to fix the political system, but something to do.
Well, every touch point is really amazing. I'm just so inspired by what I'm hearing from each of you.
Jonathan, if you could just touch base with me and let me know what you're doing, because I am actually working with a committee that Jill Biden may form to try and deal with a national mentor program. So I'd be happy to talk with you, and let's.
Yeah, of course. I'm doing it. I think maybe, I don't know if Van is doing, I think some other people are doing it through the Princeton mentor collective thing, but I'll get in touch with you offline. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
I was part of that as well. It's quite rewarding, pretty amazing. Sally, you looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, through June and July and early August, mostly was out on the streets, legal observing the Black Lives Matter protests, probably about 3 or 4 days a week or nights a week. Saw worse police behavior in Des Moines than I've seen since I moved here. And then helping a little bit with people who were representing themselves until they could get lawyers. And I also poll watched for election day, so.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else want to share something? Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I'll just throw my hat in with other people involved with voting this year. You know, I did retire. I could have joined the previous group because I did retire this year, and said I had to do something with the political system here. And so I got suckered into running a whole education program in New Jersey, which was gonna go blue no matter what, but get out the vote type of things. We ran a series of seminars with all the different synagogues. It was through the Union for Reform Judaism here. So, my thing.
Dan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, what I've been doing is actually, I returned to a program I'd been in after we graduated. I joined in 1980 a program called Project Dorot, which is Hebrew for Generations, working with the Jewish elderly. And I had been in touch on a regular basis with a woman on the Upper West Side of New York from 80 to 94 when she passed away. And then I didn't do anything with the organization for 25 years. And then this spring, I got back in touch with them to see if they had any need for people to connect with the elderly, given everybody's so shut in. And in fact, they have a program called Caring Calls. So I've been assigned to a woman. It started as a 4-week commitment, then an 8-week commitment, and then to December. So it just kind of keeps going. So we've become very good friends, and I talk to her every week just to check in, see what's going on. She's very literary. She sends me things she's written. I send her things I write. And it just kind of gives her another person to talk to.
Okay, thanks. We want to move to breakouts in a moment. We want to make sure we do it. We may end up running, 5 or 10 minutes over, but we want to give everyone a chance to engage at least a little bit tonight. But is there anything else in this group before we move to that? Because I know you all came in here. I didn't let you all speak yet. All right, let's have everybody come back in. You can turn your video on. I'm going to set up I don't have slides today. I'm just going to explain. I think what we've done now is quite inspiring. And now we're going to get a chance to move into breakouts where everyone gets to participate. And the theme that I thought about, and I'm putting it in the chat right now, is life during COVID-19. So this is just a 10-minute chance in small groups to share some experiences and perspectives about our lives during this time. Okay, so we're going to have about 5 to 6 people in each room in random groups. And it's a chance to just share a little bit about what's going on and, how is there a bright side to the pandemic for you? How are you coping? What do you miss most about normal life? What do you not miss about quote unquote normal life? Anything you want to share. And obviously it's your choice, how much or what you want to share in these groups, but it's really a chance to meet with a few classmates and just connect a little bit around, how we're doing in this time. Okay, questions before we go to the breakouts?
Bernardo, just to mention to everybody, if you reopen the chat, once you're in the breakout room, you'll see the chat. It will go away when you go into the breakout room.
Thank you. That's a great point. Thank you so much, Brian. Yeah, what I pasted in there will still be there, but you have to reopen it, okay? I'm gonna open the rooms. You're gonna have 10 minutes, so we'll see you back here in 10 minutes, okay? Hopefully you can stick around for a few extra minutes from the 1/2 hour. Thanks, Dwayne. Take care. See you in 10 minutes.
I jumped out early. Oops.
Wendy, I'll pass it back to you. You're muted, Wendy. We've got 24 people
Sorry.
left. It looks like some people
All right,
left.
well, that was really terrific as always. And thank you everybody for staying on with us a little late. It's always great to reconnect with friends and make new ones during these Tiger Chats. And what I find is that in some really unexpected ways, these breakout rooms give us an opportunity to get to know each other even better than live reunions, because we get to really chat about things that are important in our lives instead of just saying hello over a beer in the courtyard. So when I look back on all the challenges and losses of 2020, our 1980 Tiger Chats and Tiger Talks have really been the silver lining for me, building the ties that bind. And I'm really grateful and just want to make note of our amazing Tiger Chats committee of 50 remarkable classmates who helped plan these events. And I especially want to thank Bill Natbunny, Bernardo Ferdman, Catherine Treadgold, Flo Hudson, Cliff Wilson, Karen Hertz-Everett, John Navario, and my fellow MC Royce Flippin, as well as special guest Gary King for their help on tonight's program. And thank you to our terrific class president, Rich Becker, for his ongoing support. The Tiger Chats committee is always open to new members, and we do chats during meetings. So if you'd like to join or just have some ideas for future Tiger Chats, please email me. So that concludes tonight's Tiger Chats. Thank you all for joining us.
And Wendy, thank you for organizing this as always.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, Royce. And
Wendy, what's your email? Wendy,
It's,
what's your email?
Karen, can you put in the chat? It's Wendy B, like boy, Gerber @gmail.com. And I just want to say we really look forward to keeping the momentum going on Tiger Chats in 2021. Please spread the word to your friends and fellow classmates so we have even more people on board for February when we join together again. And we have 2 great Tiger Talks in the meantime. And I think our musical sign off should be ready to go. We wish everyone a healthy, happy new year. Cliff Wilson couldn't join us tonight. He usually heads our entertainment, but he sent us a closing number. And he's changing it up a little this month. We usually end with Old Nassau, but tonight we're ending with the Princeton Fight Song, which was recorded by the Nassoons, including Cliff's son. You'll remember the lyrics. They start, "When the alums of Princeton gather anywhere." And the Nassoons recorded this version in 2011, when I suspect no one could have envisioned that Princeton alums would be gathering virtually on Zoom. But this is sure to keep our Princeton spirit going well into 2021. So Bernardo, please cue it up. And thank you everyone for joining.
Wait, can you, oh wait, it's the wrong, what are you seeing? Are you seeing the?
We see the title.
The title? Okay, here we go.
When alums of Princeton gather anywhere, there's a place they think of longing to be there. It's the one and only university, situated and celebrated in New Jersey. Going back, going back, going back to Nassau Hall. Going back, going back to the best damn place of all. Going back, going back. From all this earthly ball, we'll clear the track as we go back, going back to Nassau Hall. And then we'll crash through that line of blue and send the backs on round the end. Fight, fight for every yard, Princeton's honor to defend. Rah, 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 Tigers, sis, boom, ha, and locomotives by the store. For we'll fight with a vim that is dead sure to win for old Nassau, for old Nassau.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night. Be well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Wendy.
Happy holidays.